It was a Tuesday, not unlike any other Tuesday, but I swear to you, it changed everything. I hadn't planned on finding anything. I wasn't looking for anything. But when you've been married as long as I have, when you've lived in the same house with someone for years, you start noticing things. Small things. Things that weren't there before. And sometimes, you can't help but dig a little deeper when that nagging feeling takes root. It all started with an old drawer in our study. The kind of drawer no one ever opens. The one at the back of the desk that's filled with receipts, old bills, and random papers from years ago. It's the kind of drawer that's easy to ignore, because who needs more clutter? But for some reason, on this particular Tuesday, I couldn't get it out of my mind. I'd been meaning to clean out that drawer for months. It was my turn to handle the little chores around the house, and I had procrastinated long enough. I opened it, expecting the usual mess: papers, pins, forgotten receipts. But then I saw it. A small, folded piece of paper tucked away between two old notebooks. It wasn't the kind of thing you'd expect to find in that drawer. I hesitated for a moment, thinking it was just some old note or scrap of paper that had been left behind. But my curiosity got the better of me, and I picked it up. The handwriting was familiar, but the words, they stopped me dead in my tracks. I don't know how much longer I can do this. The truth is, I've been thinking about leaving for a while now. I just don't have the courage to take the final step. If things were different, I think I'd be happy. I blinked. My heart skipped a beat. I knew that handwriting. I had seen it 1,000 times, my wife's handwriting. But I couldn't understand. What was she talking about? We had been together for years. We had a life, a routine. She had never shown any sign of being unhappy, at least not in the way this letter seemed to suggest. I read it again, trying to make sense of the words, but the more I read, the more questions filled my head. What was she really thinking? The letter felt like a confession, but it didn't explain much. It was vague, incomplete, and yet it felt like the beginning of something bigger, something I didn't fully understand. There was no name, no specific reference to anything concrete. Just that phrase, if things were different, I think I'd be happy. I stood there for a moment, staring at the paper, my mind spinning. What did she mean by different? Who had she been talking to? Was she unhappy with me? Or was she regretting some choice she had made in her life? I couldn't just ignore it. I had to know more. I tucked the letter into my pocket and went to find her. I needed answers. I couldn't let this go, not without confronting her. I didn't care if it was late or if she was busy. This wasn't something I could forget, not now. When I found her in the kitchen, she was washing the dishes, her back turned to me. She hadn't noticed me standing there, and I almost hesitated. But then the thought of that letter, her words, overwhelmed me. "Elena," I said, my voice quiet but firm. She turned around, her expression unreadable at first. Then her eyes flicked to the paper in my hand, and I saw a flash of panic in her eyes. "What's that?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. I didn't answer. Instead, I stepped forward, holding the letter out to her. She stared at it for a long moment before looking back at me, her face pale. I didn't want you to find that," she said, her voice trembling slightly. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "Why? What is this? Why did you write this?" She took a deep breath, then sat down at the kitchen table, her hands shaking. "It's nothing," she said, but her words didn't match her face. I don't know. I was feeling lost. It's not important." I didn't believe her. Not for a second. This wasn't just some casual note. It was a cry for help, or maybe something even darker. And I wasn't going to let her off the hook that easily. "Elena," I said, my voice quieter now, "I need to understand. I don't know what's going on, but this isn't just nothing. What are you not telling me?" For a long moment, there was only silence between us. Then, almost as if the weight of the question broke her, she looked up at me, her eyes filled with tears. "It's not you," she whispered. "It's me. I've been unhappy for a long time, but I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to face it." Her words hung in the air like an electric charge, crackling with all the things she wasn't saying. But just then, something inside me snapped. This wasn't about me trying to fix it. This wasn't about making things better. This was about the truth. And I wasn't going to let her hide from it anymore. "So what now?" I asked, my voice suddenly cold, the anger rising inside me. She swallowed, the tears threatening to fall. "I don't know," she said. "I never thought I'd be in this situation." I stood there for a moment, just staring at her, trying to process what I had just heard. And then it hit me. the thing I had been afraid of all along. She wasn't just unhappy. She was ready to leave. And that realization changed everything. I wasn't ready for the storm that was about to hit, but in that moment, I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. The truth had finally come out. I sat down at the kitchen table, the letter still clutched in my hand, my mind spinning. Elena's confession hung in the air between us like a thick fog. She was sitting across from me now, her hands folded tightly in her lap, her gaze fixed on the tabletop, avoiding mine. There was a visible tension in her body, the kind that made it clear she was waiting for something, but she didn't know what. She didn't know how to make this right, because how could she? I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand answers, to rip the truth from her, piece by piece. But instead, I took a deep breath, trying to keep myself from falling apart. I couldn't lose control. I needed to hear it all. I needed the full story, even if it hurt more than anything I could imagine. Elena, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You need to tell me everything. Don't hold anything back. Why are you so unhappy? Who is this letter for? What is going on in your head? She flinched at the questions, but she didn't answer right away. Her eyes welled up, but she blinked them away, refusing to let the tears fall. I could see the battle inside her. She didn't want to hurt me, but at the same time, she had already hurt me more than words could explain. The silence between us was suffocating. I'm sorry, she whispered after what felt like an eternity. I never wanted you to find out this way, but I've been living a lie for so long. I've been trying to keep up appearances, trying to be the person you wanted me to be, and I lost myself. I leaned back in my chair, trying to absorb what she was saying, but the more she spoke, the less sense it all made. We'd been married for years. We'd built a life together. How had I not seen the cracks forming? How had I not noticed the signs? I don't understand, I said, my voice tight. You've been pretending? All this time? Why didn't you tell me? What do you mean by you lost yourself? Elena took a deep breath, as if preparing herself for something painful. When we first got together, everything was perfect. I thought you were everything I wanted. But as time went on, I started feeling like I was living in your shadow. I couldn't be who I truly was. I couldn't express myself. And then I met someone who made me feel alive again. My heart stopped. I didn't want to hear this, but I couldn't stop her. The words felt like daggers, piercing through whatever was left of the trust we had. I don't understand, I said, my voice shaking now. Who is this person? Are you in love with them? Elena's eyes flicked to mine for a brief moment, and then she looked away, as if she couldn't bear to meet my gaze. She bit her lip, her hands trembling. I don't know if it's love, but there's something there. Something I haven't felt in a long time. When I'm with him, I feel seen. I feel like I'm not invisible anymore. Her words hit me like a wave crashing against a rock. I couldn't process them all at once. It didn't make sense. Elena, the woman I thought I knew, the woman I thought I was sharing my life with, was telling me that she had found someone else. Someone who made her feel alive. Someone who was filling the void I hadn't even known existed. And worse, she was telling me this as if it was some kind of confession, like it was something I should understand. I couldn't speak for a long moment. My mind was a jumble of conflicting thoughts and emotions. Anger, betrayal, hurt. But more than anything, I felt empty, like I had been living in a dream, and the moment I woke up, everything I had built was suddenly shattered. Is this why you wrote that letter? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Is this why you've been so distant? Because of him? She nodded, her eyes filled with unshed tears. Yes, she said softly. I don't know how to explain it. It's like I've been suffocating. I've been trying to hold on to this life, but I don't know if it's the life I want anymore. I don't know if I can keep living this lie. I wanted to shout, to scream at her for doing this to me, for betraying me in the worst possible way. But I couldn't find the words. Instead, I sat there, frozen, feeling the weight of her admission pressing down on me. I had always thought we had a strong marriage. I had trusted her with everything, my heart, my soul, my future. But now, everything felt like a lie. Elena, I said after a long pause, you need to make a choice. You need to figure out what you really want. But you can't keep playing both sides. You can't keep pretending everything is fine with me while you're out there, looking for something else. She nodded again, her face pale, her hands still trembling in her lap. I know. I've been selfish. I've been so selfish. But I don't know what to do. I don't know what the right choice is anymore. There was a long silence. A silence that stretched on longer than I could bear. I stared at her, not knowing if I should say more, if I should offer her a way out, or if I should just walk away and leave her to her own mess. But what kind of man would I be if I just gave up like that? You need to leave, I said finally, my voice low and steady. You need to figure out who you are, what you want. But you can't do it here. Not like this. Her eyes filled with shock, and she opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. The moment felt like it was suspended in time. And in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't the one who had lost everything. She had. I got up from the table, walked out of the room, and left her sitting there, a woman caught between two lives, trying to decide which one to keep. I didn't know if she would come back. I didn't know if we could ever fix this. But I knew one thing for sure. The life we had was over. And now, we were both going to have to find a way to live in the aftermath of the choices we had made. The days that followed felt like a slow, suffocating descent into a nightmare. Every corner of the house seemed to echo with the weight of Elena's words. The silence between us was deafening. She hadn't packed her things yet, and she hadn't left. Instead, she drifted around the house like a ghost, trying to avoid my eyes, trying to avoid the truth that was now hanging between us like an unshakable shadow. But I couldn't stop thinking about what she had said. When I'm with him, I feel seen. I feel alive. It hurt, deeper than anything I had ever felt before. To hear that she had found someone else, someone who made her feel alive, while I had been left in the dark, was like a slow burn. I kept trying to convince myself that I could fix it, that maybe this was just a phase, or maybe it was just a temporary lapse in judgment. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized there was no going back. I had been sitting in the living room, staring at the same spot on the floor for what felt like hours, when I heard the knock at the door. It wasn't the sound of someone casually knocking, either. It was firm, urgent. My heart skipped a beat, and for a brief moment, I thought it might be Elena, back for some explanation, back to undo the damage she had done. But when I opened the door, it wasn't Elena standing there. It was him, the man, the one she had been talking about, the one who had made her feel alive. His name was Andrew, or at least that's what he introduced himself as. He was tall, well-dressed, and had an air of confidence about him, the kind of confidence that comes with knowing exactly what you want. He didn't look like someone who was ashamed of anything. He looked like someone who had already gotten what he wanted and was now just going through the motions to make sure everything played out in his favor. "Can I help you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though I was already feeling my pulse quicken. Andrew didn't waste time with pleasantries. His eyes scanned me briefly before he spoke, his tone almost casual. "I'm Andrew," he said, as if his name alone was enough to explain everything. "I know this is difficult for you, but I think it's time you and Elena had a conversation. Things have already gone too far." My stomach churned. The nerve of this guy, the arrogance. He was standing there, like he had every right to be there, while I was left to pick up the pieces of my life. "What are you talking about?" I demanded, my voice more forceful than I intended. "I'm talking about Elena," he said. "She's been telling me about the state of your marriage, about how things aren't working. You don't need to pretend anymore. I think it's time for both of you to face the truth." He paused for a moment, his eyes briefly flicking to the door behind me, as if waiting for some sign to move forward. "She's unhappy, and I think you already know that, right?" I wanted to punch him. I wanted to shout at him to get the hell off my doorstep. But for some reason, I just stood there, rooted to the spot, completely paralyzed by the realization that this was real. This was happening. My wife, the woman I had trusted with everything, was now involved with this man, a stranger who was standing in front of me, dictating terms I never thought I'd hear. "You've got some nerve, coming here like this," I finally managed to say, my voice low and dangerous. "This is between Elena and me. Stay out of it." Andrew's smirk didn't falter. He wasn't intimidated. Instead, he seemed almost pleased by the confrontation. "I'm not here to make things worse," he said, his voice smooth, almost soothing. "I'm here because I think it's time for you to let go. You and Elena have been growing apart for a long time, and I think you both know it. She's already made her decision, and it's not about you anymore." I felt my blood boil. "What the hell do you mean by that?" "I'm saying that Elena deserves to be happy," Andrew said, stepping closer, as if to make sure I heard every word. "And if you can't give her that, then maybe it's time to stop pretending. She's ready for something else, something real. She's ready for me." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. It was too much. My entire world was collapsing in on itself. Elena, the woman I had loved, the woman I had spent years building a life with, was no longer mine. She had already moved on. And now, this man, this stranger, was standing in front of me, claiming her like she was some prize to be won. I couldn't take it anymore. "Get out," I said, my voice low and dangerous, almost a growl. "You don't belong here. I don't need your help. I don't need anything from you." But Andrew didn't leave. He just looked at me for a long moment, as if assessing whether or not I could actually follow through with my threat. And then, without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, in the doorway, completely shattered. As I watched him walk down the driveway, a part of me wanted to run after him, to confront him, to demand that he stay away from Elena. But another part of me, the part that was still holding on to what little dignity I had left, knew I couldn't. There was nothing left to fight for. Elena had already made her choice, and nothing I did was going to change that. The door closed behind me, and I stood there in the hallway, alone, trying to process what had just happened. The life I thought I knew had been taken from me, and all I could do was stand there, powerless to stop it. The reality of what was happening was finally sinking in. And just like that, everything had changed. The days after Andrew came to my door felt like a blur. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I didn't know how to breathe through the suffocating weight of it all. Elena and I were still living under the same roof, but there was no conversation, no understanding, just the cold air between us. I wanted to scream at her, demand answers, but every time I tried to talk, she clammed up, retreating into silence. The tension was unbearable, but I couldn't let go. I wasn't ready to admit that this was the end. I couldn't be. So, I did what I always did. I kept going through the motions. I went to work, did my chores, cooked dinner, and pretended like everything was normal. But nothing was normal. Not anymore. It was on the fourth day after Andrew's visit that things started to spiral in a way I never expected. I came home late from a meeting, exhausted from the day, and I noticed something immediately. Elena's car was gone. It wasn't parked in the driveway. At first, I thought maybe she had gone out to run errands or meet a friend, but then I noticed something else. The front door was slightly ajar, as if it hadn't been properly closed. My stomach sank. I knew then that something wasn't right. Something had changed, and I wasn't sure I was ready to face it. I pushed the door open slowly, every creak of the hinges sounding louder than usual in the dead quiet of the house. My heart was pounding in my chest as I stepped inside, the familiar scent of the place now feeling foreign, cold, and hollow. I dropped my keys onto the counter, trying to shake off the unease creeping up my spine. Then I saw it. There, on the kitchen table, was a note. It wasn't just any note, it was the note. The one I had feared would come. "I'm sorry. I know this isn't easy, but I need to be honest. I can't keep pretending anymore. I've made a decision. I'm leaving." I stood frozen, staring at the words in front of me. My hand trembled as I reached out to pick it up. Each word felt like a dagger twisting deeper into my chest. She was really doing it. She was leaving me. I could feel the world around me start to collapse, and in the silence of the house, all I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. The note continued. "I've been seeing someone else. I know it's wrong, and I know it hurts you, but I can't deny how I feel anymore. I wish things had turned out differently, but I've made my choice. I'm going to him. Please don't try to find me. I'm sorry." I read it over and over again, but the words didn't change. My mind raced, my chest tight with a mix of rage, betrayal, and heartbreak. She was leaving, and it wasn't for some trivial reason. She was leaving for him. It wasn't just that she was gone. It was the way she had made the decision, like it was already settled in her mind, like she had been planning this for a long time. The thought of Elena being with someone else, of her finding comfort in someone's arms other than mine, was too much to bear. But what hit me the hardest was how she had so easily made her choice. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but the air felt thick and heavy, suffocating. I needed answers. I needed to confront her. She couldn't just leave without telling me everything, could she? I grabbed my coat, my hands shaking as I slid it on. Without thinking, I left the house and drove toward Andrew's place. I didn't even know where it was exactly, but I knew the general direction. I had to find out what she saw in him. I had to know what made him better than me. The drive felt like it took forever. My mind kept racing, running through the different scenarios in my head, trying to make sense of it all. I hadn't seen Andrew since he knocked on my door. He was a stranger, someone who had come into my life like a storm and torn everything apart. But I wasn't going to let him get away with it. I needed to confront him. I needed to look him in the eyes and see what was so special about him that made Elena choose him over me. Finally, I pulled up to a nondescript apartment building. I didn't know what I was expecting, a lavish penthouse, a mansion, something extravagant. But it was just a plain, ordinary building. I parked in the lot and sat there for a moment, trying to calm myself. My hands were sweating. My thoughts were jumbled. But I couldn't back out now. I had to know. I walked up to the building, my steps quick and heavy. The building was quiet, too quiet, like the calm before a storm. I found his apartment on the 3rd floor, and before I could change my mind, I knocked. 3 sharp raps on the door. I heard movement inside, footsteps approaching, and then the door swung open. It was Andrew. He looked at me for a long moment, his eyes scanning me with an almost amused expression, like he was expecting me. "What do you want?" he asked, his tone nonchalant, as if this was just another routine encounter for him. I didn't waste any time. "I want to know why," I said, my voice low but steady. "Why her? Why Elena? What did you do to make her leave me?" He leaned against the doorframe, his arms crossed, his expression unchanging. "You already know the answer to that," he said, a small, almost smug smile playing on his lips. "Elena's been unhappy with you for a long time. And if you can't see that, then maybe you weren't as in tune with her as you thought." I felt the anger bubble up inside me. "You think you've got all the answers, don't you?" I spat, my hands clenched into fists. "You think you're some kind of savior. Well, I'm not buying it." Andrew didn't flinch. He didn't even seem fazed. Instead, he pushed the door open wider, stepping aside. "Come inside. If you really want answers, you're going to have to see things for yourself." I hesitated. I didn't want to walk into his apartment, to step into his world, but something in me urged me forward. I needed to see it. I needed to understand why everything had fallen apart. I stepped inside, the door closing behind me with a soft click. The apartment was minimalistic, nothing extravagant. But there was something about the place that felt unsettling, as if everything inside was carefully curated, like it was meant to make a statement. Andrew gestured to the couch, and I sat down, my mind still spinning. I didn't know what I expected to find, but nothing could have prepared me for the next words that came out of his mouth. "Elena made her choice," he said, his voice suddenly softer, more serious. "But what you don't understand is that it wasn't just about us. It was about you, the person you became." I stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. "What do you mean?" He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as if he were seeing right through me. "You stopped seeing her. You stopped being there for her. And that's when I stepped in. She needed someone who saw her, who understood her. And I gave her that." The realization hit me like a freight train. Elena hadn't just left because of him. She had left because I had stopped being the man she needed. I had taken her for granted, and by the time I realized it, it was too late. But the worst part? I didn't know how to fix it. I sat there, in the silence of Andrew's apartment, trying to process what he had just said. His words hung in the air, thick and suffocating, like a weight pressing down on my chest. She needed someone who saw her, who understood her. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. What the hell was I supposed to do with that? What had I missed? How had I let it slip so far out of my grasp? I stood up suddenly, the frustration rising inside me like an uncontrollable storm. "So what? You think you're the answer? That you're the better man?" I spat, my voice shaking with anger. "You think you just swoop in and save her because I wasn't perfect enough? You think she just needs you?" Andrew didn't flinch. He didn't even look surprised by my outburst. His expression remained unreadable, his eyes calm and steady, like he had anticipated this reaction. He was so damn calm, it made me want to scream. "I'm not here to be your enemy," he said, his voice low and measured. "I'm here because I think you need to face the truth. Elena's not the same woman you married. She changed. You didn't. That's what happened." His words hit me like a slap to the face. What the hell was he talking about? Of course, Elena had changed. We all did. But didn't we promise each other that we would work through things together? That's what marriage was supposed to be about, wasn't it? Facing the hard times, the rough patches, and coming out the other side stronger. But I hadn't been strong. I hadn't seen the signs. I hadn't seen her slipping away, bit by bit, until she was someone else entirely. And now, this stranger, this Andrew, was standing in front of me, telling me things I hadn't wanted to hear. I shook my head, pacing the small living room, my thoughts running wild. You don't get it, I said, my voice cracking. I loved her. I tried. I worked my ass off. What more could I have done? How did I miss this? How did I lose her? Andrew didn't move, just watched me with those damn calculating eyes. His silence was maddening. But finally, he spoke, his voice a little softer this time. Maybe you loved her, but you didn't see her, he said, his tone almost pitying. You were too caught up in your own world, in your own struggles, to notice she was drowning in hers. She tried to tell you. She tried so many times, but you didn't hear her. And eventually, she gave up. I stopped in my tracks, my body frozen by the weight of his words. What do you mean she tried to tell me? I whispered, my voice barely audible. What do you mean, gave up? Andrew leaned back in his chair, finally uncrossing his arms. He exhaled slowly, like he was weighing his next words carefully. There were signs. You didn't see them. But Elena was suffocating in that marriage, and she was too proud to admit it to you. She was scared to lose you, scared to rock the boat. But in the end, she couldn't keep pretending. She couldn't keep ignoring the fact that she was lost. And when I came along, I listened. I heard her. I saw her. The anger that had been bubbling inside me, threatening to boil over, slowly began to shift into something else. Something darker. Guilt. Regret. I had missed it. I had missed everything. I'd been so caught up in my own world, so consumed by work and my own frustrations, that I hadn't stopped to notice her. I hadn't listened to her. I hadn't seen the quiet tears she must have shed when I wasn't looking. I hadn't noticed the distance growing between us until it was too late. I didn't know, I said, the words coming out like a confession. I didn't know how much she was hurting. I didn't know. Andrew gave me a cold, sympathetic look. You can't change the past, he said, his voice almost taunting now. But you can learn from it. But right now, you have to face the fact that Elena made a choice. And she's not coming back. The finality of his words struck me harder than anything I'd felt up until that point. She wasn't coming back. There was no magic fix. No quick solution. Elena had already made her choice, and I was too late. The room felt suffocating. The walls seemed to close in on me, my own failure echoing in my mind. I had failed her. I had failed us. I stood there in the dimly lit apartment, the air thick with the weight of my realization. Andrew stood up then, taking a step closer, his eyes never leaving mine. You can't keep blaming me, he said quietly. I didn't do this to you. I'm not the one who pushed her away. You did that. My throat tightened. I didn't know how to respond. How could I? He was right. He was absolutely right. I had been blind to everything that mattered. Elena had been right there in front of me, struggling, reaching out, and I had been too wrapped up in my own life to see it. Do you want to know what she needs now? Andrew asked, his voice suddenly softer, almost like he was trying to help me. She needs peace. She needs someone who's going to listen. Someone who isn't going to ignore the cracks until they're too big to fix. That's what I gave her, and that's what you couldn't. I stood there in stunned silence. There was nothing left to say. What could I say? He was right. He had given her something I had failed to give her. Attention, understanding, empathy, all the things that had been missing for so long. All the things I had taken for granted. I'm sorry, I whispered, the words feeling hollow and empty, even though they were all I could say. Andrew gave a slight nod, as if acknowledging my apology. You should be. But this isn't about me, or her, or even you. It's about her finding herself again. And if you really care, you'll let her go. You'll give her that. I turned and walked out of his apartment, feeling like I was leaving behind everything I had ever known. When I stepped outside, the cold air hit me like a slap in the face. I stood there, staring at the darkened streets, unsure of where I was going, unsure of what to do next. But one thing was painfully clear. Elena was gone, and I had no idea how to find my way back to the person I had once been. I drove for hours that night, the city lights blurring past in a haze as my mind raced, trying to piece together the wreckage of my life. Every turn, every stoplight, every person I passed seemed like a reminder of everything I had lost. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. All I could think about was Elena, and the sickening realization that I had let her slip away. I had let her fall out of love with me. And now, she was gone, and I had no one to blame but myself. The next morning, I woke up in the same place I had always woken up, but it didn't feel like home anymore. The house was empty. There was no laughter, no warmth, just the echo of memories that seemed to mock me now, reminding me of everything I had taken for granted. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't even know where to begin. I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the cup of coffee in front of me, but it had no taste. It felt like everything had lost its flavor, like I was living in a world where nothing felt real. I had been so blind, so focused on my own problems, my own frustrations, that I had never seen what Elena was going through. I never noticed the cracks forming until they were too wide to ignore. I picked up my phone, my hands shaking as I scrolled through my contacts, but I couldn't bring myself to call anyone. What would I say? How could I explain this? How could I ask for help when I had failed at the one thing that mattered most? I could already hear their voices in my head. What happened to you? Where did it all go wrong? I didn't know the answer, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't let her go without at least trying to fix it. I needed to talk to her. I needed to hear her voice, to hear her tell me why she had made this decision and whether there was any hope left. But when I called, it went straight to voicemail. I tried again and again, but there was no answer. I didn't know where she was, and for the first time, it hit me. I didn't have any control anymore. The life we had built together was slipping through my fingers, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I couldn't keep waiting around, hoping she would come back. I had to find her. I had to do something. I didn't care if I looked desperate. I didn't care if I looked like a fool. I had to at least try to make it right. I grabbed my coat and left the house, walking to the car with purpose. My mind was set. I was going to find her, no matter where she was. And when I did, I was going to make her see how much I still loved her. I was going to beg her to come back. But as I stepped outside, a familiar car pulled into the driveway. It was Elena's. My heart stopped. For a split second, I thought I was hallucinating, but no. It was her car. She was back. My legs moved without thinking, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't wait any longer. I needed to talk to her. I needed answers. I ran to the door, barely giving myself a second to breathe before I swung it open. Elena was standing there, her bag slung over her shoulder, her face pale, her eyes avoiding mine. She looked different, distant, like she had already made peace with whatever decision she had made. "Elena," I said, my voice desperate, reaching out to her. "Please, can we talk?" She stopped in her tracks, her eyes flicking to me for just a moment before she sighed and shook her head. "I don't know if there's anything left to say," she said quietly. Her voice was so calm, so final, that it almost knocked the wind out of me. "I don't care," I said, stepping forward, my hands shaking. "I don't care if there's nothing left to say. I need you to know that I am sorry. I messed up. I took you for granted. I never saw the signs. I didn't listen to you. But I am begging you. Please, don't leave me." She turned her head away, her eyes flicking to the ground. For a moment, I thought she might break down, that she might fall into my arms and say that everything could be fixed. But she didn't. She just stood there, a quiet tension in her posture, like she was holding herself together, not wanting to break. "Elena, please," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "I need you. I can't do this without you. I know I've messed up, but I swear, I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. I'll listen. I'll be there for you. I'll change." She didn't move. She didn't speak for a long time, and in that silence, I felt like my heart was being ripped out of my chest. The pain was unbearable. I had tried to hold on to something that was slipping through my fingers, and now, I wasn't sure if I even had a chance. Finally, she looked at me. Her eyes were filled with a quiet sadness, but there was something else there too. Something like resolution. "I don't know if I can believe you anymore," she said softly, the words cutting deeper than anything I had heard from her. "I've heard it all before. I don't know how many times I can give you another chance. I don't know if I can trust you to change." Her words felt like a punch to the gut. I didn't know how to respond. What could I say? She was right. I had broken her trust, and now I was paying the price. "I've given you everything I have," she continued, her voice steady but cold. "And now, I'm giving myself a chance to find out who I am without you. I don't know what the future holds, but I know it can't be with you." The finality in her voice hit me like a wave, knocking me back. I felt the ground shift beneath me, the truth sinking in slowly, painfully, until I couldn't breathe. She wasn't just leaving me physically. She was leaving me emotionally, too. I wanted to beg her. I wanted to plead with her to stay, but I knew I couldn't force her. I had lost my chance. "Goodbye," she said quietly, before turning and walking away, her footsteps echoing in my ears as I stood there, frozen. I stood there for a long time, staring after her, the realization crashing down on me. There was no fixing this. She was gone, and I had no one to blame but myself. The days blurred into each other after Elena left. I tried to carry on with my life, tried to act like everything was normal, but nothing felt right. The silence in the house was deafening. I had become a ghost in my own home, walking through rooms I had once shared with her, but now they felt empty, hollow. Even the smallest things, the way the sunlight hit the kitchen counter in the morning, or the sound of her footsteps down the hall, felt like reminders of everything I had lost. Every day was a new kind of torture. I couldn't avoid the truth, no matter how hard I tried. Elena was gone, not just physically, but emotionally. She had checked out long before she left. And now I was left in this house, staring at the wreckage of everything I had failed to protect. I thought about what Andrew had said, that I hadn't seen her, that I had let her slip through my fingers. And every time I thought about it, I felt like I was suffocating. It wasn't just the loneliness that ate away at me. It was the guilt, the regret, the constant question of whether there was something I could have done differently. If I had noticed sooner, maybe I could have saved us. But it was too late for that now. I spent a lot of time staring at my phone, waiting for a message, a call, something, anything that would tell me that Elena was thinking about me, regretting her decision. But nothing came. Just silence. The kind of silence that can swallow you whole. I tried to keep busy. I threw myself into work, tried to distract myself from the emptiness of the house. But even that felt meaningless. Without her, it all seemed pointless. I had nothing left to look forward to. And every time I walked through the front door, I was hit with the overwhelming absence of her. The smell of her perfume was gone. The laughter, the conversations, the small touches, all of it was just a memory now. Weeks passed, and I tried to move on. But how do you move on when the person you love has taken a piece of your soul with them? How do you just let go when the woman you built your entire life around walks out the door, leaving nothing but a gaping hole? I tried to reach out to her a few times, but I could never find the right words. Every text, every call felt forced, like I was trying too hard to bridge a gap that couldn't be bridged. I could hear her voice in my head, that finality in her tone when she said goodbye. She was done with me, and the worst part was, I understood why. But then, one evening, something unexpected happened. I was sitting in the living room, nursing a drink, trying to bury my thoughts in the flickering light of the TV, when I heard the doorbell ring. I wasn't expecting anyone. I wasn't prepared for anyone to be there. But when I opened the door, there she was. Elena. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. After weeks of nothing, after all the space and silence, there she stood, her expression unreadable. She was still the same woman I had loved, but something in her eyes had changed. The warmth I once saw in them was gone, replaced by a sadness I couldn't understand. "What are you doing here?" I asked, the words stumbling out of my mouth before I could stop them. "I had to come," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. She stepped inside, not waiting for an invitation, her eyes darting around the room as if looking for something that wasn't there anymore. I didn't know where else to go. I stood there, frozen, unsure of what to do, what to say. She had left me. She had made her choice, and now, after all this time, she was standing in my doorway, like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. She wasn't the same person I had married. Neither was I. "You left me, Elena," I said, my voice hard, a part of me wanting to hold on to my anger. "You walked out. You made a choice. What is it that you want now?" Her eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the woman I had once known. "I don't know," she whispered. "I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep running from everything I felt. But now, I don't know where to go or what to do." I couldn't tell if she was looking for comfort or for closure, but I couldn't give her either. My heart ached at the sight of her, but it also hardened with the reality of what had happened. She had made her decision. She had walked away, and now she was asking me to be the safety net she had left behind. But I wasn't sure I could be that person anymore. "You can't just come back and expect everything to be the same," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You can't undo what's been done. We can't just go back to how it was." Elena looked down at the floor, the tears spilling down her cheeks now. "I know," she said quietly. "I don't want things to go back to how they were. I don't know. I don't know what I want anymore." I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what I was supposed to feel. A part of me wanted to pull her into my arms and make everything right again. But another part of me knew that we couldn't just erase the pain. We couldn't undo the years of mistakes, of distance, of silence. She took a step back, wiping her eyes as if she was trying to compose herself. I think I need to go, she said, her voice cracking. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have come. No, I said, stepping forward before I could stop myself. Stay? Please. Just stay? But she shook her head, a small, bitter smile tugging at her lips. I can't. I need to figure things out on my own. I need to be alone. And with that, she turned and walked out of the door, leaving me standing there, holding on to the remains of a love that had been broken beyond repair. I watched her disappear into the night, the door swinging shut behind her with a finality that echoed in my heart. And for the first time, I realized this was it. There was no going back. The life we had built together was gone, and nothing would ever be the same again. She was gone for good. And so was the version of me that had once believed in fairy tales and happy endings. Because sometimes, life doesn't give you a second chance. Sometimes, it just leaves you with the ghosts of the past, haunting the places you used to call home. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. I spent my days wandering the house, trying to piece together the fragments of my broken world. Elena was gone, and no matter how much I wanted to rewind time, to fix what I had broken, I knew that wasn't possible. I had to accept that. It wasn't easy, but I had to. For a long time, I drowned myself in work, in distractions, trying to outrun the emptiness that filled every corner of my life. But eventually, something inside me started to shift. I realized that I couldn't keep hiding from the pain. I had to face it head on. I had to let go of the version of Elena I once knew and accept the reality that we had both changed. It wasn't just about losing her anymore. It was about finding myself again, about rediscovering who I was before I became consumed by everything I thought I needed. I started taking small steps toward healing. I picked up old hobbies, the ones I had abandoned when life got busy, painting, hiking, reading books I had forgotten about. Slowly, I began to reclaim pieces of myself that had been buried under years of neglect and routine. It wasn't easy. There were days when I felt like I was drowning, when the weight of the loss was too much to bear. But as time passed, I started to feel lighter. The silence in the house didn't feel as oppressive anymore. The emptiness began to feel like space for new things, for growth, for healing. One afternoon, about 3 months after Elena had left, I received an unexpected message. It was from her. I stared at the screen for a long moment, my heart racing, unsure of what to expect. But when I opened the message, it was simple. I've been thinking about everything. I'm not sure where this goes, but I wanted to tell you that I'm sorry. For everything. I don't expect anything from you, but I hope you're doing well. I sat there, my mind racing, trying to process it. It wasn't an apology that would fix everything. It wasn't a grand gesture, but it was a start. And that was all I needed to know. I didn't respond right away. I took my time, thinking carefully about what I wanted to say, what I had learned. When I finally replied, it was simple too. Thank you. I've been thinking about things as well. I'm healing. I'm okay. I hope you find the peace you're looking for. It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't an attempt to pull her back into my life. It was just closure. It was me saying that I was okay, that I was learning to live without her, and that I wished her nothing but happiness in the future. Days turned into weeks, and I kept moving forward. Life didn't suddenly become perfect, but it became manageable. I had learned the hard way that sometimes the most important thing you can do is let go, not just of the person you love, but of the version of yourself that needs them. Months passed, and one morning, as I walked through the park, taking in the crisp autumn air, I realized that I was finally free. Not from her memory, not from the past, but free from the weight of regret. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was at peace with what had happened. That was when I met someone new. Her name was Maya. She had a smile that reminded me of sunrises and a laugh that filled every room she was in with warmth. It wasn't that I was looking for someone to replace Elena. It was that I had finally allowed myself to be open to the possibility of new beginnings. Maya didn't fix me. She didn't fill the emptiness left by Elena. But she was a reminder that life doesn't end with one loss. We started seeing each other slowly, taking the time to learn about each other without rushing. It wasn't perfect, and I didn't expect it to be. But I didn't need perfection anymore. I just needed to embrace the beauty of moving forward. Elena was still a part of my past, and I would always remember the love we shared. But now, I understood something important. I didn't need to hold on to the past to find peace. I could let go of the things I couldn't change and embrace the new, the unknown, with open arms. The healing wasn't immediate. It wasn't instant. But as I stood there, looking out at the world in front of me, I realized that I was finally on the right path. The path toward healing, toward understanding, and most importantly, toward a future that was mine to shape. I had learned that sometimes, the best way to hold on to someone is to let them go.